We're live, Andy.
We are now live also.
Thank you. Good evening. Welcome to the meeting tonight of the Open Space Community Preservation Committee on April 21st, 2022. I will do the preliminaries. This meeting is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on June 16, 2021. This meeting will be conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance by members of the public will be permitted. In order to mitigate the transmission of COVID-19, the town has been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. All members of the Northborough Open Space Committee, all members of the Northborough Community Preservation Committee are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. This order allows the Northborough CPC to meet entirely remotely as long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation, as such participation is required by law. This meeting is technically not a public hearing webinar. However, we will entertain citizens who are online and listening to ask questions if they need to. I will take a roll call of members. And please acknowledge your presence. Andy Dowd.
Present.
Leslie Harrison.
Here.
Millie Milton.
Here.
Peter Martin.
Here.
Jeff Leland.
Here.
John Campbell is me. I am here. We have 6 members. That's a quorum of our committee. We will let others come in. I think there's 2 others that might join. Please bring them in, Andy. I want to thank members for making time on short notice. We have some new news that we need to discuss regarding our CPA articles. I forwarded to you a letter about this subject, as well as an attachment with the current text of the articles for town meeting involving CPA, and as well as a copy of an email from Rick Leaf of the Northborough Affordable Housing Corporation. The main subject of tonight's meeting is that we apparently have been asked to pass over the warrant article for the Senior Affordable Housing Project by Lynn Tremblay, the Housing Authority Executive Director, due to the denial of the application from the Department of Housing and Community Development. Lynn has sent a letter to the town administrator and to me as chairman of the Community Preservation Committee. I want to read that letter into the record. You may have a copy and follow along, but I'd like it to be on record as stated by Lynn. A little background, just for anyone who is listening and is forgetting. The Northborough Housing Authority sponsored this project, which we voted in unanimously to be put on the town meeting warrant at our meeting on February 10. The project was well thought out. It had excellent support. There was collaboration from the Housing Corporation, the Housing Authority, the town administrator, the CPA, and presumably from the state. However, with all of Lynn's preparation, she was disappointed in the response she got. I will now read the letter. Dear Mr. Campbell and Mr. Coderre, subsequent to the CPC approving $1,340,000 of CPA funding and the selectmen approving $100,000 of ARPA funding for the Northborough Housing Authority project at Village Drive, NHA submitted its formal application to the DHCD on March 15. for the $800,000 incentive of state funding for the project. NHA had stayed in contact with DHCD since the fall of 2021 about this project, had indicated that the cost of the project received from the architect was $2,440,000, and that the NHA was applying for CPA funding for the project and was contributing $200,000 of its own reserve. They asked for a preliminary response from DHCD regarding the prospect of the project, that it would qualify for the $800,000 incentive. DHCD gave a positive preliminary response, indicated that the project was worthwhile, and encouraged NHA to make a formal application once it was clear that the other sources of funding were available. NHA provided ongoing updates to DHCD between the fall of 2021 and the time when the formal application was submitted, and continued to receive encouragement from DHCD to submit a formal application. DHCD responded to NHA about the application on April 1st. Their response including administrative questions which NHA needed to answer, but disturbingly also indicated that due to the recent rise in costs of labor and materials, they felt the project cost was significantly underestimated. DHC indicated that based on their current experience, the project would cost approximately $3,600,000, and that they would not approve the project unless NHA could demonstrate that an additional $1,200,000 of funding was available. At no time in the discussions between NHA and DHCD about this project did DHCD indicate any concern about the cost estimate provided to them in the fall of 2021. And NHA was surprised and disappointed in the response from DHCD. Since the DHCD response, NHA has tried to find alternative funding sources for the project, contacting our state representatives and other housing agencies for potential available funds. However, in the short time frame existing since the response and town meeting, no additional sources of funding can be found. DHCD confirmed again on April 15 that the project is not approved. NHA therefore regrettably requests that the warrant article asking for approval of CPA and ARPA funding for this project be passed over at town meeting on April 25th. NHA sincerely appreciates the support that both of you, I assume that's me, the CPC and the selectmen provided for this project. We will continue to work with the Northborough Affordable Housing Corporation to look for ways to increase the stock of affordable housing in Northborough. And we'll make applications for funding as opportunities present themselves in the future. Again, thanks so much for your support for this project. Let us know if you have any questions or need additional information, etc. So I shared her disappointment. It was clear a lot of effort went into this. There was a lot of passion behind it. We as a committee spent a lot of time evaluating it, understanding where the numbers were going to come from. The warrant article was complicated, but clear. We had both previous town meeting authority for affordable housing funds that were granted to the Northborough Affordable Housing Corporation. They had not been used, and by agreement with the CPC and the Board of Selectmen, those could be used, and that process had started. We voted to approve those funds at our February 10 meeting. We had the estimate from NHA's architect to go by. We had their contribution of $200,000, and we had the additional ARPA contribution from John Kader's budget of same for the Board of Selectmen and the town. And we found a way to make it happen during our February 10th meeting by using a combination of new revenue, funds from our unreserved account, which is our savings, if you will, and from the affordable housing reserve account specifically. And we made it work, in addition to finding a way to approve the other worthy projects before us. So I was sad that it happened. It is challenging working with the state. It's challenging figuring out project costs. We have learned this lesson as a committee, thinking that one estimate's good enough and having to come back for more. We've learned not to do that for town meeting, trying to have appropriate data, and felt we had in this case. And it's disappointing that we're not able to bring it forward, but I believe we will continue, as Lynn says, to look for opportunities for other affordable housing projects, maybe a smaller scope, maybe a different place, but that will be part of our mission for the coming year. I would like to open this up to members of the CPC. I'd like you all to comment any feelings or questions you have regarding what I read or any of the information. I'd like us all to share what we feel, make sure that we're understanding it correctly. Please, anyone feel free from the committee.
It seems clear to me that we can't proceed, right? There's nothing, I mean, they're gonna pass over it. We need to,
Yeah,
doesn't
that's
seem like
correct.
we have any options, right?
We don't have any good options. There's really no mechanism to amend. We would be speculating that we could find a way to do something and speculating that we could find a way to find more funding. Lynn's position on that, not having any immediate sources, is a valid one. So it's not appropriate to go to town meeting on speculation.
Certainly won't surprise anyone to learn that construction costs have escalated considerably recently. So that has some plausibility to that.
It's true. It just seems a shame that apparently maybe there's one person or group at DHCD who was not forthcoming in what they felt was an appropriate amount. So I'm sure that's frustrating to Lynn, assuming you're dealing with the right people or getting the right feedback. But
Right.
I don't have enough experience to say that their estimate's too high or that hers was too low.
Right.
It seems like way more money than you would need for building 8 apartments. But as you said, the cost is high, and doing public projects makes it even more difficult.
John, I'll just add that obviously, like everybody, very disappointed that it's not going to work out, because it really was a joint effort and a lot of hard work that went into it by both the Housing Authority, this committee, and many other involved folks in the town. And disappointing that it won't be able to go forward. And certainly the lack of communication earlier on from the state is frustrating, to say the least.
How does it actually work at town meeting, John? Do you know? I mean, we just, the town warrant, the warrant is on the list of articles, and at the presentation we simply explain the circumstances and say that the warrant article will be passed over, or does town meeting actually have to vote to pass over the article?
No, it's typically, it won't be a surprise to the moderator, so it will be known and announced, but it won't be published to that effect. If I'm not mistaken, the warrant as currently written will be published for attendees of the town meeting, but it will be announced. I'm glad you brought it up, though, in a way, because I believe that we should and will give an explanation, and also demonstrate and remind the voters that affordable housing is one of the 3 core tenets of CPA, and that each year we have a minimum that we bring to it, and hopefully we bring to bear viable projects, as we've done several times successfully, and also to emphasize the need is still there, and we will continue to work toward another project. Ironically, after our meeting on February 10, it was brought to the attention by town staff that should the warrant article, which was number 23, should it have failed as it's currently written, we would have had no voted mechanism to put the minimum affordable housing number into the reserve, the minimum 10%. And I think that I personally did not know that we necessarily had to do that the town accountant might do that, but we chose to put in a backup article. So Article 24 is the backup article for voting in the minimum 10%,
right,
provided that Article 23 did not pass. In this case, we're passing over it. So we will present Article 24 for the minimum. And personally, I think my plan for the presentation would be that we'll use that forum to explain why it's passing over and continue to talk about, the mission of affordable housing within the CPA.
John, in your years with the CPC, has this ever happened before where a project wasn't funded as hoped for and had to be withdrawn?
Really, I can't personally remember. I feel like there might have been
Mhm.
something. I can't personally remember, certainly nothing of this magnitude.
Okay.
We have learned along the way of different CPC years and eventually, with help from town staff, got better at understanding what we should bring to town meeting that's got enough backup information. And that's a reason why some of our projects have been phased. Phased 1 for architectural study, perhaps phase 2 to build it.
Yeah.
Such as, field lighting and different things. So this is a bit unique.
So there's no real default mechanism to reallocate any of the money that is now not going to. There's no like backup or emergency application process that could be brought forth. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's correct. I think in this case, if the text of the article, if the basis was being amended, a source of funding changed or increased or decreased, and we needed to modify what we were going to present, we'd be voting on that. We already went back and forth on the dollar amounts and finally got it right from our perspective, and then got the confirmation that the town could contribute the ARPA funds. So the totals worked out. We had all that right. But should there had been a glitch there or a misunderstanding, we might have done that.
Yeah.
But, I think, as I said, for us to modify the article on the fly and try to, put money into another source or something like that doesn't seem to be appropriate.
Okay.
The funding that we did vote included new revenue, so that won't be spent on this, but it would be spent on the minimum 10%.
Yep.
Or I should say 10% of new revenue would be put into affordable housing reserve. The remainder of the new revenue will go into unreserved account. The amount from the unreserved account that we are going to use will remain there.
Okay.
And the amounts already in the affordable housing reserve column will remain there.
John, if I could just add, as far as procedurally with town meeting, the article itself couldn't be modified. It's only the motion that can change. Once the warrant is posted with those defined articles, the notice has been given to the public, the warrant's closed by the Board of Selectmen. You couldn't change the actual article. So you could only modify the motion to that same basic proposal. So unfortunately, I wouldn't be able to come up with another way to spend some money this year, but good question though.
Thanks
Thank
for your
you, Andy.
clarification. Right, and even if we were dreaming something up tonight, it's, as you said, the warrant is closed.
Feel like we were able to fund all the other requests anyway, so.
Yeah, it's just that the conservation fund didn't get they got gypped a bit.
True.
That's okay. Conservation Fund is used to it.
Right.
Well, the good news is, if there is any, we will be adding, we'll be maintaining reserves, which some members were concerned about.
Yeah.
We know that there'll be another affordable housing project, and we know that there's other big things we need to be looking out for. So not a bad thing to put it back in savings, if you will.
John, do you need a vote of this committee to recommend that this article be passed over?
Yes, I believe we do. And if you were to make a motion for that, I believe it should include that we are, well, yeah, you might just include that we will instead present the article for the minimum 10% to the affordable housing account.
Well, let me just make a motion that the committee decides that we will pass over Article 23, and in lieu of that, or in addition to that, we will proceed with Article 24, which is the $75,000 for the affordable housing reserve.
Second.
Motion by Peter and a second by Millie, right?
Mhm.
Very good. Any other discussion on the motion among members? Hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Andy Dowd,
Yes.
Leslie,
Yes,
Millie,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
and John. It is 6-0, and that's still the only members we have right now. So we are so moved. Before any other discussion, so as a follow-on to that, Rick Leaf of the Northborough Affordable Housing Corporation wrote me an email that I've shared a printed copy with you. And this regards the reauthorization of monies previously granted at town meeting to the Northborough Affordable Housing Corporation. We do this customarily each year when requested. If an amount approved at town meeting is about to expire its term and they still want to consider having it available for affordable housing projects. And so we did vote that, but what we did vote at the time of February 10 was that we agreed to use those prior authorizations at town meeting toward Article 23, the Senior Affordable Housing Project. Now, the Northborough Affordable Housing Corporation is requesting that we as a committee give our approval to reauthorize those funds, making them available again for, I think it's a 2-year term for each amount. And the Board of Selectmen must also vote that approval. And with that, the NAHC is free to draw from those funds if a project comes up. Reminder, those funds remain in town accounts, if you will. Should Northborough Affordable Housing Corporation have a project, then they submit their request for funding and pull out what's needed. That has worked successfully with the Main Street and Center Drive and Hitching Post Lane apartments recently created. So I asked Rick to give me a brief list, and he almost did that. Most of Rick's emails are not brief, but this one is about as good as it gets. And I say that lovingly, Rick, if you're listening somewhere. I want to list those amounts, and then we could entertain a motion to reauthorize those amounts. It is consisting of $100,000 approved at town meeting. Let me start over. $20,000 remains from $500,000 approved at town meeting 2015. $100,000 was approved at town meeting 2016, has not yet been utilized. $100,000 was approved at town meeting 2017, $100,000 at town meeting 2018, $150,000 at town meeting 2019. It totals $470,000 from those different amounts. And again, the request is that we agree to reauthorize it so that they are available as they were in prior years.
Do you want to do it as the one motion with the 5
Yes.
separate amounts? Does that make sense?
I think it does.
Okay. I make a motion that the CPC reauthorize $20,000 from the $500,000 approved at 2015 town meeting, $100,000 approved at 2016 town meeting, $100,000 approved at 2017 town meeting, $100,000 approved at 2018 town meeting, and $150,000 approved at 2019 town meeting for a total of $470,000.
I will second that motion.
Motion by Millie, seconded by Peter. Thank you. Any other discussion by members of this topic?
And it's understood that the reauthorization is for 4 years, for 2 years with respect to each of these amounts?
Yes.
Okay.
That is consistent with the funding agreement that's created for each amount authorized at town meeting for this purpose.
Do we need to specify that in the motion, the vote, do you think?
I believe the motion is sufficient.
Okay.
Very good. I'll take a roll call vote on this motion. Andy Dowd,
Yes.
Leslie,
Yes,
Millie,
Yes,
Peter,
Yes,
Jeff,
Yes.
and me, John Campbell. So approved. Thank you. There are a few others who asked if they could join the meeting. We hadn't set it up as a public hearing, but I am okay with that. And one of those people has their hand up. It is Julianne Hirsch, I believe. And Andy, do you need to invite or do I?
She is here and can talk if she
She's
wishes.
available.
Yeah.
Julianne, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I know who you are, but do you mind stating for the record who you are?
Sure. Julianne Hirsch. I live at 19 Smith Road, and I'm surprised that my hand is up because actually all of my questions have been answered. I was just curious what happens at this point, but I guess everything starts again from the beginning of the process. So that was going to be my question tonight, but you've answered it. So thank you very much.
Thank you for listening in. I believe members were also sent the minutes from February 10 meeting. And I know you all studied them. That being said, were there any comments or changes in minutes or otherwise a motion to approve?
I will move approval of the minutes of the CBC meeting of February 10th, 2022 as presented.
Seconded.
Motion by Peter, seconded by Andy. Thank you. Seeing no other questions, I'll take a roll call vote to approve the minutes. Andy Dowd,
Yes.
Leslie,
yes,
Millie,
yes,
Peter,
Yes,
Jeff,
Yes.
and John. Very good. Thank you. Does any other member have any other questions, new information? I'm done.
I got nothing.
All right. Well, thanks again, everybody, for making time to get this done. And see you at town meeting. I will finish the PowerPoint show as previous years, and I plan to have at least a slide regarding affordable housing and its importance to town. And we'll use that forum to bring that up to residents and otherwise work hard to get the other projects approved.
all right.
Thank you, John.
but yeah,
Yes,
thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Very
Bye,
good.
everybody.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Bye.
Good night, everybody.
Motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Second.
Aye.
Bye.